All right. So,
Good evening, sir.
yeah, good evening, good evening. So, we will begin with structuralism, and if time permits me, then I will also talk about post-structuralism. But before that, I would like to talk about the history, a kind of story that you can remember. It becomes easy and it will help you in your long-term career, not only for Ugc-Net, but also beyond that. So, like in the case of history of literature, you will find that we have so many of political and social history behind each age that has somehow shaped the literature of that time. In the same way, theory has been also shaped by the history of that particular period. Now, why I'm telling you this is because structuralism almost came into the forefront around 1960s, isn't it? But then you will find the precursor of structuralism from the time of Ferdinand de Saussure, especially his compilation of lectures that has been published by his disciples in 1916 called the Courses in General Linguistics. So it begins from there, but then the high tide of structuralism was that of the time of 1960s. Now, why the world needs this structuralism as a theory, as a movement? Why do we need that? Everything was going on, everything was fine with other theories and all. Why do we need structuralism all of a sudden? Now, what happened is that if you remember, modernism was a time period when you will see two world wars. Apart from the world war, you will also see many rise of many isms. Uh, am I audible to you? If my network fluctuates, please let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so
Sorry.
much. Thank you so much. So we have many isms arising and arriving at this stage during the modern age. So, for instance, in Italy, you will find the rise of fascism. Also in Romania, the rise of fascism was there. In communism was there in Russia, that was known as USSR by that time. Communism was there. Marxism was there also in many of the Western country. Now all these isms somehow started to collapse by the time we reach 1950s because of these two world war. One of the cause was this two world war that neither communism nor fascism nor Marxism, nothing can explain this war. Why we fought this war? Why so many people died? What is the cause? How you are going to justify that? Can you justify it on the basis of Marxism? Can you justify it on the basis of fascism or Nazism, whatever it is? So all these ideologies, these isms, these movement collapsed. Now world wanted a new kind of ideology, a new kind of movement that can justify things in a very scientific way. Ideologies are more than often arise out of our emotion rather than the factual thing. Structuralism, if you have read the definition of it, it's a kind of scientific movement. So when you talk about communism, fascism, these are not very scientific in nature. It has more emotion rather than science in it, rather than fact in it. Now, one example I would like to give is that of Stalin. Stalin was a kind of father figure, God kind of figure for USSR. Okay, his reign as a dictator kind of. He was a communist. Obviously, USSR was communist nation until the fall of the Berlin Wall. So Stalin was a kind of God figure until his death. After his death, what happened is that on 25th February 1956, Nikita Khrushchev, the first secretary of the Communist Party of Soviet Union, gave a very famous speech. The name of this speech is On the Cult of Personality and Its Consequences. Now, as I have told you, that Stalin was a kind of god figure for Russia. After his death, whole Russia was mourning. whole USSR was mourning that our God is no more. But then what happened is that because Nikita Khrushchev, he was working with Stalin before Stalin died, he knows the atrocities committed by Stalin. He knows everything. That Stalin, in the name of communism, killed many people, and this is what he counted all those atrocities in a kind of secret meeting that happened in USSR. And the title of that speech, in which he pointed out all the atrocities, all the mass killing committed by Stalin, that speech is known as On the Cult of Personality, which means to defend his personality, this person, Stalin, actually made himself a godlike figure in front of them. But he was not a godlike figure. He actually killed many people in order to arrive at that stage, in order to spread communism. He became an autocrat. He killed so many people. All of these atrocities has been listed by Nikita Khrushchev. And people and scholars says that while Nikita Khrushchev was delivering this speech, many of the believers, the faithful believers of Stalin, they suffered from heart attack and few of them also died in the same room. Okay, are you getting my point? It's a part of history, a story. Just listen it, try to think over it. So now they were disillusioned that we were worshipping Stalin, we were following communism, but in the name of communism, Stalin killed so many people. And this is the secret speech, this secret meeting somehow get out of that four wall, and it went through the European nations, the other part of Europe, such as Britain and America. That is one of the cause of the fall of Berlin Wall. Okay, this was one of the cause. So you see, communism, the people who were defending the communism, they started to question it. That if communism was so good, then why Stalin did so many atrocities in the name of communism? Which means communism, we cannot go with communism anymore. People started to doubt. This is about communism. The second thing is about the Marxism. Marxist tendency to read a movement in the light of dialectic and dichronic method. What is dialectic and dichronic method? Dialectic means the clash of two power. For instance, the working class and the capitalist. This is dialectic. What is dichronic? When you read a longer period of history, let's say from 1700 to 1900, there are almost 200 years. You are reading that much of history. This is called dichronic history. So Marxist has this tendency of reading the history as well as dialect, the clash. Okay. But this tendency is no more there in the contemporary time during the 1960s. Why? Because structuralism distanced itself from the dichronic methodology of Marxist thought. Why? Because structuralism will talk about the synchronicity, the time in which someone is living. Okay, instead of going back to history. Structuralism won't go back to history to refer things. They will talk about the synchronicity of the time. Synchronicity means when I'm talking about a particular age. For instance, I'm talking about 1945. What happened in 1945? What happened during 1940s? Small period of time. This is called synchronic study. And when I'm studying about 500 years, 600 years, something like that, it's a dichronic study. Okay, so Marxist has this tendency of dichronic study, but this structuralism came up with this idea of synchronic study. So the people started to question communism. The same people started to question Marxism. They also started to question Nazism, fascism, because all of led to many atrocities, many mass killing. This also led to this Holocaust and all. So this was the history why the world went to structuralism from Marxism, communism, fascism, Nazism. Okay, the world moved toward structuralism. Structuralism initially was a kind of, again, historical movement. It has nothing to do with literature at that point of time or theory. Later on, people started to associate this structuralism, this giving of a structure to everything, with the work of Ferdinand de Saussure, because his work, the compilation of his work, was already published in 1916. Then why all of a sudden we started to talk about Ferdinand de Saussure in 1960s? Why we call about this structuralism? And also, if you will see, Ferdinand de Saussure might be the father of structuralism, but the initiator, the promoter of structuralism was Claude Levi-Strauss. Okay, do remember this. So, structuralism, with its scientific rather than ideological premises, offered an attractive way out of this predicament of many. Predicament of many, by predicament of many, I mean the predicament of communism, fascism, Nazism. So, structuralism gave a way to get out of these isms and ideologies, to see things in a very scientific way. Okay, whatever there is. Now, so yeah, this is about post-structuralism because I'm talking about right now structuralism on. So, structuralism actually structure. It talks about the structure, a shape. When I'm saying shape, I mean units arranged in particular order. Okay, structuralism is a kind of shape, giving shape to everything, and that shape is what? That is units arranged in particular order. Each unit is in a proper relation with other. Now, see, I'm presenting my screen. Yeah, see this. Uh, Ferdinand de Saussure will further talk about the syntagmatic structure and paradigmatic structure, if you remember. So, this is also associated with land and parole. Okay, if you are getting confused, you can ask me at any point of time. Before I just tell you that is structuralism actually talks about the structure, giving shape to everything, giving order to everything, in which one thing is connected to other. It's not like everything is in a kind of vacant space. For instance, I'm drawing a circle here. See how you are going to define this circle. Center here. Okay, this center is connected to the circle. It is related to the circle. Okay, without center, you cannot imagine of a circle. Can you imagine a circle without center? Not possible. Okay, so that's why I told you that each unit is in a proper relation with other. This circumference is related to the center. Okay, this circumference is placed at equal distance from the center. That's why I'm saying that each unit is a proper relation with other. So circle has a proper structure. It is related to one another. The center is related to the circumference. Circumference is related to the center. There is a diameter. There is a radius. Everything is kind of fixed in a structural form. Now you see, I'm talking about this syntagmatic structure and what is paradigmatic structure. When I'm saying I am a girl. Okay, this is the syntagmatic part. Okay, syntagmatic structure. This is the paradigmatic structure. Okay. Now, when I'm saying I am a girl, I is connected with M is connected with A is connected with girl. Can I say like this that A, M, I, girl? Will that make any sense? Do you think if I say A, M, I, it's not following a proper structure? One word is not connected to another, isn't it? So to provide it a particular structure where one word is connected with another,
This is
making
not
a
a
sense,
structure.
we need to place it in such a way that it will make a sense. That's why I have said I am a girl. This is connected with each other and it makes sense. Okay. Now you see, I can replace this I with either we, you, or me, isn't it? I can say like this: we are girls. you are a girl, me, a girl, okay, something like that. In the same way, I can replace this am with either is or are. For instance, um, we are girls. So I can replace this am with are. I can also replace this with is. Okay. He is a girl. She is a girl. Okay. She is a girl. I can replace this girl with either boy, man, women, or let's say one name, Ram. I can replace this with anyone. Fine. Now, if you remember Lang and parole, parole is the act of speaking, isn't it? Performance. What Chomsky will say, performance. Parole is performance, act of speaking. So this I am a girl, when I'm performing when I'm speaking, I am a girl, I am using my performative skill. Okay, I am using my skills to combine things in a proper way so that it will make a sense. I am performing an act of speaking. This is known as parole. This is known as parole. Then what is Lang? Lang is the reservoir of knowledge that we have. I can replace I with we. I can replace I with you. I can replace I with me. I can replace girl with boy, man, woman, ram, whatever I like. This is the reservoir that is there inside me. This is the vocabulary that is there in my brain. I can replace with any of them as per the need. This reservoir is called the Lang. Okay, Lang. And this act of individual act of speaking is called parole. Am I making sense? Is it clear? You can ask me. So see this syntagmatic structure, the horizontal line talks about the parole, the act of speaking, individual act of speaking. This paradigmatic structure, the Lang, talks about the reservoir. We have always an option of picking and choosing. We can pick anything, we can choose anything and replace here in the parole section from our Lang. Lang is our reservoir. For instance, this is the reservoir. This is the type of speaking. Then I have so many things here. Okay, I will put something here as per my need. Only I can put anything from my reservoir that is there in my brain. The only condition is that you have to arrange in such a way that it will make sense. It shouldn't sound nonsensical. Clear है? समझ आ रही है बात? What is parole? What is Lang? Great. Now, this structure has been further modified by Roma Jakobson. I was talking about, right now, I was talking about Ferdinand de Saussure. This has been further modified by Roma Jakobson. Now, what Roma Jakobson will say, he uses this concept uh, and he uses this term metonymy and metaphor. Okay, metonymy, he called this horizontal line as metonymy, and he called this vertical line as metaphor. Technically and also technically this parole thing also. So metonymy and metaphor. If you remember the figure of speech metonymy, what is it? It's a kind of combination and association, isn't it? Combining the things. So when I am heard, I am combining it in such a way that it will make a sense, a sensible sentence with a particular meaning. This is metonymy, combination and association. What is metaphor? Metaphor means similarity and substitution. When I'm substituting I with we, for example, when I'm saying I am a lion, I am metaphorically comparing myself to lion on the basis of courage. That I and lion has the same courage, isn't it? So I'm replacing the lion, this courage. When I'm saying I am a lion, I'm comparing myself with lion. I can compare myself with tiger. I can compare myself with a cat, isn't it? So this substitution, I'm substituting one thing over other. For example, मैं I की जगह we use कर सकता हूँ, you use कर सकता हूँ, me use कर सकता हूँ. गर्ल की जगह बॉय, मैन, वुमेन, नाम कुछ भी यूज कर सकते। So this is metaphor. Metaphor means, remember this, metaphor means similarity and substitution. Metonymy means combination and association. क्लियर है? बस सिंपल है। देखो, जो ससुर ने ऑलरेडी यूज कर दिया था, फर्डिनेंड डी ससुर ने, उसी को रोमा याकूब्सन एक नया टर्म यूज करके बता रहा है, मेटोनोमी एंड मेटाफर। हो सकता है इन एग्जाम दे कैन आस्क यू दैट Saussure talks about syntagmatic structure and paradigmatic structure, which has been further developed by Roma Jakobson. What are the two terms used in place of Saussure's term by Roma Jakobson? Then they will give you this option of metaphor, metonymy. Okay, syntagmatic structure, paradigmatic structure. So the correct answer will be metaphor and metonymy. They can also ask you what is metonymy as per Roma Jakobson's thought. So it's a combination and association of things. Okay, and what is metaphor? Similarity and substitution. ठीक है, जब मैं आई के जगह वी, यू, मी इसको सब्स्टिट्यूट कर रहा हूँ, दिस इज कॉल्ड मेटाफर। और जब मैं कंबाइन कर रहा हूँ आई को एम से, एम को ए को गर्ल से, कंबाइन करके जब सेंटेंस बना रहा हूँ, दिस इज कॉल्ड मेटोनोम। एम आई मेकिंग सेंस? इज इट क्लियर? या, एग्जैक्टली, रिप्लेसमेंट एंड एसोसिएशन। So Ferdinand de Saussure, he studied, yeah, before I will go back to this semiology and structuralism, I will talk about two important things. You can write it down, uh, that Charles Sanders, Charles Sanders Peirce is the father of semiotics, and Ferdinand de Saussure
Yes, sir. Replacement and association. These two actually.
is the father of semiology. Okay, semiotic, semiology. There is a very thin difference between them, but do remember this. Okay, father of semiotics is Charles Sanders Peirce, and father of semiology is Ferdinand de Saussure. We are more concerned about semiology when we are reading structuralism. Okay, but then both of them use this idea of sign is equal to signifier by signifier. Okay, both of them. All right. With this, let us come back. I have talked about the history. I have talked about the idea of metaphor, metonymy, Lang and parole, syntagmatic structure, paradigmatic structure. I have also talked about dichronic study, synchronic study. These are all part of structuralism. So structuralism as a movement came from the word structure, which means anything which follows a pattern or certain rules. Structuralism is primarily concerned with the studies of structure. If we look around, we would find that the whole world is in a particular structure. Okay. For instance, just think of our solar system. Sun at the center, all the planets are revolving around it. That's how the structuralists actually looked at the world. Then they started to find the same structure in literature also. They started to find that. They started to read literature as a part of structure, that it follows a particular pattern, a particular structure. For instance, how many times a particular word has been used or repeated in a particular novel. What does that word signifies? Why the author is using a particular word in a novel 100 times? Why? There is some implication. That's how they started to find structure in literature. Now, for example, a poem is a structure constituted by units such as sound, phrase, pauses, punctuations, and words. Every unit is connected to every other unit. A poem thus is a result of all the units put together. Okay. one structure, you can say in a way. Now I will quickly jump to the authors associated with structuralism. So Ferdinand is so first one is 1857 to 1913 is time span. A linguistic who studies the structure of language, those structure on which language is based. Okay, so he was a linguistic. So rise of structuralism can be traced back to linguist or language. Okay, always remember, structuralism has its origin in linguistics. Do remember this. The most basic unit of language is word. One needs to understand the structure of the word. I have told you just now while I was discussing this. Let me show you more. Yeah, the most basic unit is language. See, word. I am a girl. These words are basic unit which combined in certain form in a particular structure to give a meaning. Okay. Now, just think of a situation that how this word came into existence. For instance, when I'm using a word dog, when I'm using a word house, when I'm using a word home or girl, how does it came into existence? Obviously, someone must have coined, but do we know that who exactly has coined this term? Like the way we know that, okay, new criticism has been coined by John Crow and some. Do we know that who coined the term dog? We know that it is there, let's say, from this 5th century CE onwards. But who coined it? We don't know. So language actually works on the basis of social convention. किसी ने कभी यूज किया होगा, बाकी लोग भी यूज करना शुरू कर दिए, ऐसे करते करते हमारे तक वो शब्द आ एग्जैक्टली कौन टर्म कॉइन किया, वी डोंट नो, वी नेवर विल कम टू नो अबाउट दैट. ठीक है, ये कन्वेंशन पे बेस्ड है. मेरा एक सोसाइटी है जिसमें हम लोग 100 लोग हैं. मैंने एक टर्म यूज किया, सारे सोसाइटी वाले उससे अग्री किए, उन्होंने भी उस टर्म को यूज करना शुरू किया. दैट्स हाउ वी बिल्ड अ लैंग्वेज. ठीक है, एक वर्ड आया, 2 वर्ड आया, 10 वर्ड आया, हमारा सोसाइटी का वो लैंग्वेज बन गया. इट इज बेस्ड अपॉन द कन्वेंशन. क्योंकि 100 लोगों ने मान लिया उस वर्ड को, दैट्स व्हाई दैट वर्ड केम इनटू एग्जिस्टेंस. अगर वो कोई नहीं मानता तो वो तो खारिज हो जाता ना, कोई इसको मान ही नहीं रहा है तो कौन उसको यूज करेगा. तो फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ आई एम यूजिंग अ वर्ड डॉग, दैट मीन्स all of us, entire globe, all of us has actually accepted, okay, this word dog will stand for a four-footed animal which will bark, something like that. On that notion we accepted this, isn't it? Is it clear to you कि लैंग्वेज हमेशा ऐसे आर्बिट्रेरी रिलेशनशिप के साथ आता है, इसको एकदम आप एग्जैक्टली साइंटिफिकली नहीं बता सकते किसने किस टर्म को कॉइन किया. नहीं, ये सोशल कन्वेंशन पे बेस्ड है. कोई वर्ड कभी यूज हुआ, उसको उसको बहुत सारे लोगों का कंसेंट मिल गया, उससे वो एक जनरेशन से दूसरे जनरेशन गया, दूसरे से तीसरे, और हमारे तक पहुंच गया, और आज हम सब उस वर्ड को यूज कर रहे हैं. ऐसे लैंग्वेज आया. ऐसा नहीं था कि एक बंदा था उसने क्वाइन कर दिया और एक टर्म, और हम उस टर्म को यूज करने लगे. किसी ने ऑब्वियसली क्वाइन किया, लेकिन कौन किया वी डोंट. So coining a term is not important. The important thing is whether the society will accept that term or not. On the basis of that, language actually proceeds. Okay, so this is what we call arbitrariness of language. Okay, it's a kind of abstract idea. हाँ, अब DOG dog जो है वो कनेक्टेड है वेरी साइंटिफिकली. डी के बाद ओ ही होगा, ओ के बाद जी ही होगा, तभी डॉग बनेगा एक वर्ड. दिस इज वेरी साइंटिफिक, दिस इज वेरी काइंड ऑफ लिंग्विस्टिक काइंड ऑफ थिंग. दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म. लेकिन ये वर्ड जो कहां से आ गया सडनली से, दिस इज नॉट पार्ट ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर. ओके, दिस इज बेस्ड अपॉन द सोशल कन्वेंशन. सोसाइटी ने उसको एक्सेप्ट किया, इसलिए वो एग्जिस्ट कर. ठीक है. So in his 1915 work, it was published in 1916, a courses in general linguistics, he proposed that language was a system in which various components existed in relation to each other. Saussure was uh, proposing a radical rethinking of the nature of language, because before that we never thought language in such a way. कि लैंग्वेज जो है एक दूसरे से एसोसिएटेड है, और है ना अगर एक वर्ड बन रहा है चार अल्फाबेट से मिलके, तो चारों अल्फाबेट एक प्रॉपर वे में अरेंज्ड है। एक भी अरेंजमेंट गड़बड़ हुआ तो वो वर्ड नॉनसेंसिकल हो जाएगा, उसका कोई वर्ड ही मीनिंग ही नहीं बनेगा। ठीक है, तो ये चीज पहली बार उसने बोला। ओके, इट इज नॉट इनफ टू सी हाउ वर्ड्स एक्वायर मीनिंग ओवर द टाइम। ठीक है, 500 साल में ये डॉग वर्ड कैसे इवॉल्व हुआ, कहां से आया, दिस इज नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट। ठीक है, diachronic study is not important. I told you that structuralism focuses on synchronic study, not the diachronic. ठीक है, अभी इस वर्ड में कैसे कॉम्बिनेशन हो रहा है, कैसे हम सेंटेंस बना के वर्ड्स का कॉम्बिनेशन बना के यूज करें एक सेंटेंस को, दिस इज कॉल्ड सिंक्रोनिक स्टडी। तो सिंक्रोनिक स्टडी इज इंपॉर्टेंट। ठीक है, वर्ड को कैसे भी हम कंटेम्प्रेरी लैंग्वेज में यूज करें, दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट। द हिस्ट्री ऑफ दैट वर्ड इज नॉट दैट मच इंपॉर्टेंट। Okay, diachronic study is not important. Synchronic study is important. This is also one of the ideas that structuralism provides us. We need to see how words mean within a period and as part of generative language system. Here we look at words within current state of language and not at history. ये चीज मैंने बताया कि सिंक्रोनिक स्टडी हम करते हैं, हिस्ट्री और डाइक्रोनिक स्टडी की बात नहीं करते हैं। ठीक है, कंसेप्ट ऑफ लैंग एंड parole मैंने अभी बताया। कंसेप्ट ऑफ साइन इज इक्वल टू सिग्निफायर बाय सिग्निफाइड, आई विल टॉक अबाउट दैट। एंड आर्बिट्रेरीनेस ऑफ लैंग्वेज मैंने अभी बताया कि डॉग जो है वो फोर फुटेड एनिमल को ही रिप्रेजेंट करेगा, दैट एनिमल विच विल बार्क। इसके इसका रिलेशन आप कैसे समझ रहे हैं? ठीक है, कैट जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ CAT कैट, इट विल रिप्रेजेंट अ कैट with four legs and a sound of meow meow. How you are going to understand? कैसे वो तीन अल्फाबेट CAT कैट उस कैट को ही रेफर करेगा? दी रिलेशनशिप इज आर्बिट्रेरी, क्योंकि सोसाइटी ने मान लिया कि कैट मतलब एक चार पैर वाला जानवर होगा जो कि मियो मियो आवाज निकालेगा और उसका फर होगा थोड़ा सा। तो सोसाइटी ने मान लिया, इसी कन्वेंशन के बेसिस पे हमने मान लिया कि हाँ, कैट इज रिप्रेजेंटेड इन सच अ वे, डॉग हैज बीन रिप्रेजेंटेड इन सच अ वे। दिस इज कॉल्ड द आर्बिट्रेरीनेस ऑफ लैंग्वेज। ठीक है, समझ में आ रही है बात? यस यस यस। हम्म। Arbitrariness, you are saying the meaning of arbitrariness? Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Changes with the time. At the same time, it comes randomly, by chance. It came randomly, by chance. We don't know who actually coined this term. ठीक है, डॉग रिप्रेजेंट करेगा फोर फुटेड एनिमल ही, ये बाय चांस हुआ, आर्बिट्रेरी है,
See,
also definitely
रैंडमली
arbitrariness
किसी ने
would
बोला
be
और
that
सोसाइटी ने उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लिया और हमने
the
बोलना शुरू कर दिया।
change,
ओके,
the change that can happen
remember
with
the
time.
notion of Hardy's use of chance, fate, coincidence in his novel। ठीक है, कुछ चीजें ऐसी हो रही है
It's a
जो
real
बियॉन्ड कंट्रोल
arbitrariness in
है हमारे,
the
हम उस पे हमारा कोई
relation
कंट्रोल नहीं है,
between
वो
signifier and
रैंडमली हो
signified
रहा है।
is
ठीक है, वो
arbitrary,
फेट से हो
it
रहा
is
है या
said,
जो भी हो रहा है,
and
वही है आर्बिट्रीनेस रिलेशनशिप
because
बिटवीन
it
वर्ड
changes with the
एंड इट्स
time,
रिप्रेजेंटेशन।
so it's
इट्स
just
हैपनिंग रैंडमली बाय चांस। वरना फिर कैसे आप बोलिएगा कि DOG डॉग जो है, ये तीन
okay.
अल्फाबेट एक फोर फुटेड एनिमल दैट बार्क्स उसको ही रिप्रेजेंट करता है?
Okay.
इज इट पॉसिबल टू जस्टिफाई बाय एनी साइंटिफिक मीन्स? कैन यू जस्टिफाई? हम ये भी तो कह सकते हैं DOG डॉग मतलब नहीं, वो चार पैर वाला जानवर नहीं होगा, दो पैर वाला कोई जानवर होगा जो कूदता है, क्योंकि सोसाइटी ने मान लिया कि हाँ ठीक है, ये फोर फुटेड एनिमल जो बार्क करेगा वो डॉग ही होगा। रैंडमली किसी ने बोला, लोगों ने मानना शुरू किया और वो सोशल कन्वेंशन का पार्ट हो गया और वो लैंग्वेज में हमारे एग्जिस्ट करने लगा। दिस इज क्वाइट आर्बिट्रेरी। क्लियर है? Mhm. Sorry, sorry, sorry. So sorry. See, uh, I'm trying to say that the three alphabets, cat or let's say dog, represents exactly a four-footed animal that can bark. It happened only by chance, very random instance. It's a kind of random instance. You cannot justify it scientifically. I can say that dog means one way of putting is that I simply can say that dog is a two-footed animal which can jump, that can jump. Okay, but because society actually accepted that no, dog is a four-footed animal that can bark, and we all
Sir,
accepted that
can you
notion.
use
That's
this
how it
English
came
so
into being.
because I don't
It
understand
simply happened
Hindi.
because randomly by chance. There is no scientific underlying meaning of that. You cannot justify it scientifically. Are you getting my point? This is what we call arbitrariness of language. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So someone was talking about this English thing. You have understood arbitrariness of language? Yeah. Thank you. All right. So he divides language into two parts, two main components. First is the set of rules by which we combine words. This is what I have told you just now, lang and parole. Okay, lang is the individual act of speaking, which Chomsky called performance, and parole is the competence. Okay, so
Yes,
under
sir. Actually,
Chomsky,
it depends
what
on
does
the
he mean?
awareness,
Lang
sir.
is the
If the person
performance,
has not any kind of
parole is
awareness,
the
then the person
competence.
will not cannot use the
Again,
particular
the
word
example
and
goes from
associate the word.
Chomsky as
As you said,
metonymy.
metonymy and one more term, metaphor.
Now let us talk about the sign.
Yes, sir.
Semiotic
Yes,
is
yes.
also the
I
study of
understood.
sign system, okay, and semiology is also kind of a study of sign system. Only difference is that Charles Sanders Peirce, he will talk about interpret, representament, and then object. He will further talk about iconic sign, indexical sign, symbolic sign. He is also talking about sign. And Ferdinand de Saussure is also talking about sign. He is talking in a different way. He is saying that sign is equal to signifier by signified, where signifier is the word or the sound, and the signified is the mental object that come instantly in our mind. When I'm saying dog, uh, for instance, when I'm saying I have seen a dog in the street, and it was running along with me, but then I don't know where it disappeared. Okay, this is what I'm saying as a kind of example. So when I'm saying this to, for instance, I'm saying this same sentence to Rajiv. Rajiv will have a image of that dog, but not the exact dog that I'm referring to. Are you getting my point? When I'm saying that I was running along with a dog and it disappeared, I'm telling this to Rajiv. Rajiv must have a kind of image of a dog, but not the exact dog that I am referring until and unless he saw dog, isn't it? So this signified is actually the mental, general kind of mental image that appears. It cannot be exact. That's why again the relationship between signifier and signified is arbitrary, because we are not 110% sure that the signifier that I'm referring is actually referring to signified. Okay, the tree that I have seen in London, I returned back, I explained this to one of my friend. He he will be able to create a mental image of that tree, but not that exact tree which I'm referring to. Okay, so sign is make gives a kind of meaning only and after when a signifier refers to a signifier. Okay, a word or sound image that comes in our mind, stuck in our mind, and then it refers to a kind of mental image of that particular word or sound. So when I'm saying tree, TREE is the word, the sound tree, the sound is the signifier. Okay. The word TREE as well as tree, the sound is the signifier. And the mental object that comes in my mind, that it has a long trunk, branches, leaves, this is signified. Clear? So this relationship between signifier and signified is based on cultural specificity in a way. वही जो मैं बोल रहा था, societal convention. It's based upon the societal convention. Okay. Yeah, I was referring to this. A cat is cat because it is not bat or hat or dog. That's why it's a cat. There is no other way you can explain how a cat is cat. Okay. White is white because it's not black.
Yes, sir.
There is no other way you can explain white. Okay. For example, I'm asking you just a question. Give me a definition of color white. Any one of you. What is white? Yes, please. Which is? Yeah, any. Then white is a color. It's not colorless. Even water, when we say colorless, it has its own color. How can you say that white as color? Why not? They are color. I'm only saying that give a definition of white or let's say black. I'm asking you for a definition. For instance, we can define this photosynthesis as the collection of heat and
which is
sunlight
no
from sun, making there is a process of making of food by the plant. That's how this photosynthesis occurs.
which has
In the
no
same way,
color,
can
that
you
is white.
define white or black? Any one of you? Can you define
White is a color because. So should I
so you are coming back
consider
to the
white and
again
black
referring to
as
some other
color?
word, isn't it? You cannot define it in isolation. This is what I'm trying to explain. Cat is
Should
cat
I
because it is
consider
not
white or
bat.
white and black
White
as
is
color?
white because it's not black. You cannot define cat or white in isolation. You have to refer to another word because this is very arbitrary based upon the social convention. Got my point? अरे समझ आ रहा है कि नहीं कोई कुछ बोल नहीं रहा ज्यादा हो रहा है क्या
White is a color because history is not a
Exactly.
black.
This is what I'm saying.
Yes,
Go a
white.
bit in detail, but then it will help you. It will help you to tackle theories, and also when you will sit for writing your proposal, theory, whatever you want, or a paper, these certainly help you at that point of time. These are all the concepts associated with Ferdinand. So now let us move on to the
Yes.
other structuralists. As I have said, that Ferdinand de Saussure might be the father of structuralism, but the promoter of this movement was Claude Levi-Strauss.
No, no,
Sir,
sir.
it's totally based on social convention, neither scientific based.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So we have read in Ferdinand de Saussure that he wrote these courses in general linguistics, 1916. In 1959, around 1959, it has been translated in English. Also, structuralism uh, becomes a movement, and its root can be found in the writings of French philosophers and theorists. Okay, do remember. They can ask you that the root of structuralism is associated with which country. So it's France. Okay. Although structuralism developed out of Saussure's pioneering work, that is courses in general linguistics, it was not until 1960s, or you can say 1970s, that it found its most widespread influence and application. Okay. It's not only that it is theoretically motivated, it is also historically motivated. I have just talked about the history. मैंने history बताया. ठीक है. History से भी structuralism motivated था. It's not always about theory and criticism. It was also historically motivated, because world needs a scientific way of justifying everything that is happening around. So generally, it is recognized as arriving in France in the mid 1960s. It gradually made an impact on Anglo-American investigation. Okay, from France, it started to propagate to the other parts of the Europe. This mode of investigation has been called semiotics by Charles Sanders Peirce, and later on, you will find semiology in the works of Ferdinand de Saussure. Okay. Now, who were the powerful practitioners of structuralism? They are Roland Barthes, Claude Levi-Strauss, Umberto Eco, Tzaventan Todorov, A.G. Grismas, Gerard Genet. I will come to all these, don't worry. Okay, I'm just telling you the names. And you will find the influence of Ferdinand de Saussure over all these authors. Okay. Now, Claude Levi-Strauss will talk about two things, two major concepts: binary opposition and myth and kinship. Okay, binary opposition and myth and kinship. Now, what is this binary opposition? I have just told you that a cat is cat because it's not a bat. A cat is cat because it's not a dog. Color white is white because it's not black. So see, this is called the binary opposition. When you are explaining one word on the basis or referring to other word, there is no other way to define that word. That's why you are referring to another word. Binary opposition. Okay. You are saying that black is opposite to white. Opposition, which is binary. That's how you are explaining white as well as black. Okay. So, this concept of binary opposition comes from linguistics. In order to understand language, you can only understand it by the way of binary opposition by referring to another word. One word will refer to another word. And on the basis of structuralism and also on the basis of binary opposition, you will find later on Derrida will further use this binary opposition in order to challenge structuralism only. I will come back to that. As an anthropologist, he needs to uncover the rule. He said that every human being thinks through binaries. For instance, man, women, day, night. In the case of man, women, we give priority to man. In the case of black and white, white and black, we give priority to white, isn't it? You see the idea of colonialism. We always gave these colonists, the colonizer, they always gave preference to white over black. They always this patriarchal society, they always gave preference to man over women, death, life over death. Okay, these are all part of binary opposition, which further explains the other things that were happening around the world. For instance, I've just given you example that patriarchal structure always promotes man over women. The colonizers always promote white over black. Okay. Whenever we say a person is dead, it means we say he is not actually living anymore. How do we conceive death? How you are going to define it? Only on the basis of this theory that, okay, because he's no more alive, that's why he's dead. Otherwise, how you are going to define what is death? Obviously, you can write thousands of lines in a kind of metaphorical way, a kind of poem you can write in order to explain death. But that doesn't mean that you are coming up with a scientific definition of death. So Claude Levi-Strauss will further say, in order to understand culture and society, you need to understand binary opposition. That's how culture and society progresses, where we have given priority to white over black, man over women. See, this is part of our culture, our society. Okay? So this was the idea of binary opposition. Every society is based on binary opposition. Then comes the universal concept of myth and kinship. Now, this myth and kinship, he talks about this in his work, The Elementary Structure of Kinship. I will give you the list of work, don't worry about that. Kinship is actually how we organize our relation to people through blood and marriage. For instance, if you believe in this theory that the first human being that has been thrown by God to this world were Adam and Eve, then don't you consider that we all are actually brothers and sisters? Think properly. If Adam and we are the children of Adam and Eve, then can we say that we are actually all of us are brother and sister and not these relationship? We are not bound to these relationships such as father, daughter, sister, brother, or let's say uncle, father, niece, nephew, something like that. This structure has been further developed, but then on the very basic level, you can see that we are actually kind of brother and sisters. If you will consider that Adam and we are the son or children of Adam and Eve. Okay, so he actually tried to give this whole human society a particular structure, that a particular myth follows a particular structure that has been adopted by this society. For example, in the case of Oedipus myth, what happened? You will see that Oedipus has been, uh, there was a prophecy that Oedipus will marry his own mother and he will kill his father. Okay, he will indulge in a incest. Okay, he tried to get away from this prophecy. He tried very hard. He did everything in his capacity in order to avoid this, in order to escape this prophecy. But he was never able to do so. If you have read the play, he actually killed his father and married his mother. Okay, so that way you can say that he is the he is the husband of his own mother. At the same time, he is also the father of the children uh, from his relationship with his mother. This is becoming a bit complex, isn't it? Let me show you. Okay. Oedipus married Jocasta. How many of you don't know the story of Oedipus and Oedipus Rex? Hmm? Every one of you know? Okay. Hmm. He's the husband of Jocasta. At the same time, father of Jocasta's children. At the same time, he somehow becomes sibling to his own children. Now tell me if you have any confusion in this. वो हस्बैंड है जो कास्टा का, ठीक है, वो फादर है जो कास्टा के सन का, लेकिन क्योंकि जो कास्टा उसकी माँ है तो कहीं ना कहीं जो चिल्ड्रेन है वो इसका भाई बहन भी हो गया ना ओडिपस का.
Yes, sir.
आर यू
Yes,
गेटिंग माय
sir.
पॉइंट?
Oedipus Rex by Sophocles.
So now let us go back to the idea that I have said initially. What I have said, that we all are brother and sister if you will consider that we are the children of Adam and Eve. Okay, we are in a kind of brother and sister kind of relationship. So Claude Levi-Strauss is trying to give a structure to this order of human being, how the relationship, how this idea of kinship progresses. We are all somehow connected with each other by blood relationship. However, you try to deny it, we are connected with each other with a blood relationship. Even if someone is my, let's say, uncle, uh, at some point of time, if you will, if we are considered or if we are in a blood relationship, we can say that he is also kind of
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
brother to me instead of uncle. This is what Ferdinand is. This is what Claude Levi-Strauss is saying. Okay, that this idea of kinship is actually associated. There is a basic structure underlying this idea of kinship, that we all are somehow associated with each other on the basis of blood relationship, and that's how the idea of kinship progresses. Same thing you will see in the case of Oedipus. He is the father of his own children. He is the husband of his mother. At the same time, sibling to his own children. Okay, I'm just trying to make things. I'm trying to explain. That's why I'm referring to these things. If it is too confusing, you can also erase it from your mind. There is no issue with that. Okay. Now, Claude Levi-Strauss will talk about my theme. What is my theme? The minimal unit of narrative sense is my theme. Okay. The minimal unit of narrative sense is my theme. For example, in the case of kinship, he's trying to give a kind of a kind of minimal unit that can explain the idea of kinship. A minimal unit that is, let's say, blood relationship on the basis of all the kinship is happening. Okay. So he tried to establish a minimal unit on the basis of which we can justify the idea of kinship. This is what he has talked about in his work, The Elementary Structure of Kinship. In the same way, he says the minimal unit of narrative sense is my theme. Um, then he also gave the idea of bricolage in his work, in his essay, The Savage Mind. Do you remember this? Then we are coming to Tatmikov. But before that, please write down these works. Okay, please write down these works. Right there in the. Hmm. I'm writing here. You also write along with me. The Savage Mind, 1962. The Elementary Kinship, 1949. Anthropology 1958. Okay, these are the important words. Savage Mind में he talked about this idea of pre-college. Okay, do remember these works. He also wrote one essay, Incest and Myth, which is again associated with the this idea of elementary structure of uh, kinship. Okay, incest and myth, in which he's talking about Oedipus and his incestuous relationship with his mother. Okay, what are the important? These are the important works. What are the important uh, terms that he talked about? Binary opposition, myth and kinship, pre-college. He also said that culture is structured like language. He said that culture is structured like language. Okay. And Laka will say that the unconscious is structured like language. Okay. Always remember. They will try to confuse you by asking these questions. Laka will say the unconscious is structured like language. Claude Levi-Strauss will say culture is structured like language. Do remember. Then obviously his most famous work is mythologies, isn't it? So this is all about Claude Levi-Strauss. He is also known as father of modern anthropology. He was a French anthropologist. He was influenced by Roma Jakobson, another structuralist. Also, Claude Levi-Strauss was an atheist. He was a Jewish. That's why he ran away from the France when Germany actually invaded France. So he ran away and he met Ferdinand de Saussure later on, and they become good friends. Okay, so he was very much influenced by Roma Jakobs. This is part of history that I have said just now. लिख लिया इसको सबने? You have written it down? Great. Yeah. He talks about mythologies, Claude Levi-Strauss. When he's saying myth and kinship, he's talking about different myths. Let's say, for example, he's talking about Oedipus myth. He's talking about the many of the Greek mythologies, and then he's defining these kinship on the basis of those myths. That in every culture there are certain myths on the basis of which a particular society progresses. For example, we have different myths and stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata which still exist. We do believe. That's why we say कि Ram or Sita jaisi jodi. It's a kind of legend that is there. We still believe in that, and we use it in the contemporary time. In the same way, he is talking about myths. Okay, mythologies is another work written by Roland Barthes. Okay, you have rightly pointed that.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Any more questions?
So my hello sir, mythology is also written by Rola Barthes.
सबको समझ में आ रहा है? थैंक यू. कौन कौन है क्लास में आज? देखिए. Okay. Joshna Joseph won't understand if I will speak in Hindi. All right. So, Joshna, have you understood what I have explained so far? Now, see, structuralism is also somehow associated with narratology. Okay, I will come back to narratology because most often than not, what we do is that we read structuralism, post-structuralism, new criticism, all else theory, but we leave narratology aside. Okay, but narratology in itself is a kind of theoretical framework. Many of the works are there which has been asked in UGC-NET. So I will one day I will talk about
Okay,
narratology,
sir.
important thinkers and their works. Okay. In the next class, I will talk about Rolla Barthes, then Vladimir Prop. Again, I'm coming back to this narratology because I have said narratology is associated with structuralism. Okay. So Roland Barthes, Vladimir
हाँ
Prop,
सर ऑल
Roma
क्लियर
Yasik
सर
San. I have
बहुत अच्छे से
already
समझा रहे हैं आप
told you his important idea, but then I will give you a few works, important works written by him. Then I will talk about minor authors. They have one or two works, but those works are important, and that has been asked in UGC-NET. For instance, Gerard Jene,
Thank you,
Tezevent
sir.
and Todorov. Again, Todorov and Janet are associated with narratology also. Okay. Then Jonathan Fuller and A.G. Graysmith. Okay. I will talk about this. And then
Yes,
while I
sir.
will be
Yes, sir.
shifting to post-structuralism, then I will initially begin with the differences between the structuralism and post-structuralism that I have showed you in one of my slides, if you remember. This one. Okay, the differences. Deconstruction is part and parcel associated with this post-structuralism. So while I will be discussing with post-structuralism, I will talk about deconstruction because deconstruction is a term that has never been used by Derrida himself, although we associate this term with him, but then he never used the exact term in exact sense. Deconstruction is again another school of thought which is somehow rooted in post-structuralism, and there are few deconstructionists. We will talk about that later. Okay, when we talk about exactly. Uh,
and what about the deconstruction there are minor difference between deconstruction and post-structuralism I think